At 2:14 a.m., Claire Morgan discovered her marriage was ending not with shouting or tears, but with a quiet email confirmation glowing on her laptop screen. The kitchen was dark, the house asleep, and the only sound was the soft hum of the refrigerator. She had been checking the credit card statement, something ordinary she did every month. Then she saw it. A reservation. La Riviere. Friday night? Table for two. Window seat. Romantic setup. Claire stared at the words, her heartbeat steady in a way that surprised her. Her anniversary with her husband Daniel wasn't until October, and Friday, he had said, would be another long night at the office. For a few seconds, she thought there must be a mistake. A business dinner, maybe. But Claire knew the truth before her mind tried to defend him. La Riviere wasn't where Daniel took clients. It was where he had proposed to her 12 years earlier. Where candlelight and soft music made people feel safe enough to tell secrets. The realization didn't explode inside her. It settled, quiet, heavy. Claire closed the laptop slowly, as if sudden movement might shatter what little calm she had left. She leaned back in her chair and stared at the ceiling. Memories drifted in without asking. Daniel's laugh, the way he used to bring her coffee in bed, the warmth of his hand on her lower back at crowded parties. Those memories felt distant now, like scenes from a life she once lived but no longer owned. She didn't cry, not yet. Instead, a clear thought formed in her mind. I need to see this with my own eyes. The next morning, Claire moved through her routine like a practiced actor. She made breakfast, answered emails, smiled at coworkers during video calls. No one noticed anything different. That almost hurt more than the betrayal itself. By lunchtime, she had done something she never imagined she would do. She had found Emily Reynolds. Emily was careful, but not careful enough. A tagged photo on social media from months ago. A reflection in a glass window. A name that appeared once too often in Daniel's phone under a false contact. Claire followed the trail quietly, patiently, until she found what she needed. Emily was married. Her husband's name was Mark. That evening, after hours of staring at her phone, Claire finally sent a message she rewrote 10 times before pressing send. It was short, calm, honest. She told Mark who she was. She told him what she believed was happening. She told him about Friday night. The reply came 20 minutes later. I was afraid you'd message me someday, Mark wrote. I just didn't think I'd feel relieved when it happened. They spoke on the phone for the first time that night. Neither of them raised their voice. Neither rushed the conversation. They talked like two people standing in the same storm, trying to understand where the wind was coming from. Mark sounded tired, the kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. He told her about missed calls, late meetings, sudden changes in Emily's habits. Claire listened and realized how similar their stories were, like two versions of the same quiet heartbreak. When Claire suggested meeting, Mark hesitated. When she explained where and why, he fell silent for a long moment. You want to sit next to them? He said finally. Yes, Claire replied. Not to make a scene. Just to be present. Another pause. Okay, Mark said. I'll be there. Friday arrived faster than Claire expected. All day, her body moved on instinct. She chose a simple navy dress, something elegant but not dramatic. She wore the necklace her mother had given her years ago, not for meaning, but for grounding. As she looked at herself in the mirror, she didn't see a woman preparing for revenge. She saw someone preparing for clarity. La Riviere looked exactly as it always had. Warm lights, white tablecloths, soft music that floated through the room without demanding attention. The hostess smiled as Claire gave her name, unaware of the story, walking in behind that calm voice. Claire followed her through the dining room and stopped when she saw the table. It was perfect. Close enough to hear. Close enough to see. Not close enough to touch. Claire sat down and rested her hands on her lap. Her heart was beating faster now, but her face remained still. A few minutes later, Mark arrived. He looked around once, then sat across from her. They exchanged a brief nod, a silent agreement that whatever happened next, they would handle it with dignity. They didn't have to wait long. Daniel entered the restaurant laughing, his hand resting easily on Emily's back. He looked relaxed, happy, like a man who believed his life was under control. Emily leaned toward him as they spoke, her smile soft and familiar. Claire noticed how easily they fit together, and the observation cut deeper than she expected. Still, she didn't look away. Daniel saw her first. The moment stretched. His smile vanished. His steps slowed. Emily followed his gaze and froze. The color drained from her face as her eyes landed on Mark. No one spoke. The room around them continued as normal forks clinking, quiet conversations, a waiter passing by with a tray of glasses. It felt as if their table existed in a separate world. Claire broke the silence. "Good evening," she said, her voice steady. "I hope you didn't wait too long." Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it again. Emily looked down at the floor. Mark sat still, his jaw tight but controlled. "This wasn't meant to be like this," Daniel finally said. Claire nodded. "I know, but here we are." Oh. They sat. All four of them. Not as enemies, not as a family, but as people facing a truth that could no longer be avoided. Claire didn't feel powerful. She felt present. And for the first time in months, that felt like enough. The waiter approached, asked if they were ready to order. Claire said yes. Her voice didn't shake. Inside, something fragile was breaking and reforming at the same time. This wasn't the end. She knew that. But it was the moment everything changed. The moment the waiter left, the weight in the room became almost tangible. Claire lifted her wine glass slowly, as if each movement were a declaration of calm in the storm. "Good evening, Daniel," she said, her tone gentle but firm. "Emily." Daniel froze mid-step, and Emily's hand tightened on her menu. Mark leaned back in his chair slightly, eyes darting between Claire and Daniel, but he remained silent. The air was thick with tension, yet no one shouted, no one made a scene. Everything about the moment demanded attention without drama, and that was precisely what made it powerful. Daniel's face paled, the first crack in the confident mask he had worn all evening. He opened his mouth, shut it, and opened it again, struggling for words. "Claire, what is this?" He finally asked the question, sounding smaller than he intended. Claire took a measured sip from her glass, savoring the quiet authority that came from being fully aware of the situation. "Dinner," she said softly. "You've planned it, remember? I just added a few more people." Her words were calm, almost conversational. Yet they carried the weight of months of suspicion, betrayal, and quiet heartbreak. Emily's voice wavered. "Mark, she began, but he raised his hand gently. "Not here. Not now," he said. His calm was like a tether in the chaos, a reminder that dignity mattered more than confrontation. Claire glanced at him, a brief nod acknowledging their unspoken alliance. Together, they had turned what could have been a humiliating ambush into something controlled, almost poetic. The waiter returned, and Claire ordered the chef's special, her voice steady. The simple act of ordering food seemed absurdly normal, yet it punctuated the evening with an eerie sense of reality. Daniel shifted uncomfortably in his seat, glancing at Emily and then at Claire. He tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. Emily, pale and trembling, avoided his gaze completely. Claire decided to break the silence, not with anger, but with truth. "You see," she began, her voice soft yet cutting, "I didn't bring you here to punish you, Daniel. I brought you here because I needed to see the truth with my own eyes. I needed to understand what has been happening in our life, quietly, without pretending everything is fine." She looked directly at him, and he flinched slightly. It was not blame, it was clarity, and it struck deeper than any accusation could have. Mark spoke next, his voice low but steady. "I've been confused for months, Emily. Watching things change, knowing something was happening, but not being sure. Seeing you here, Claire, I realized I wasn't alone in this. And that matters." His words weren't meant to attack Emily or Daniel. They were an acknowledgement that pain had been shared, that betrayal had left a mark on more than one heart. Emily's eyes glistened with tears. She pressed her hands together, trying to hold herself together. I didn't want anyone to get hurt," she whispered. But the words fell flat against the quiet strength of the room. Actions had already spoken louder than intentions, and the presence of Claire and Mark was proof enough. Claire turned slightly to Mark, their eyes meeting in a brief moment of solidarity. "None of us should have been alone in this," she said. It was the most honest thing she could offer, not forgiveness, not revenge, but recognition. They had all been hurt, in ways visible and invisible. The gesture, simple yet profound, created a strange intimacy in the room. Daniel finally spoke, his voice trembling, raw with guilt. "I never meant to hurt you, Claire. I didn't mean for this to happen." Claire nodded slowly. "I know," she replied. "That doesn't erase what happened, but it does mean I understand." The exchange wasn't dramatic or loud. It was honest, almost surgical in its precision. The truth, laid bare without theatrics, carried more weight than any argument could have. The conversation shifted to the small details of missed birthdays, late nights, and whispered excuses. Claire spoke about the loneliness she had felt in a marriage that appeared perfect to everyone else. Mark spoke about the confusion and suspicion that had haunted his nights. Emily remained quiet mostly, her face a canvas of regret, while Daniel listened and absorbed the reality of his choices. No one shouted. No one slammed a fist on the table. Every word, every pause, every glance was deliberate, measured, and full of emotional intensity. Dessert arrived, a soft, quiet punctuation to the tense dialogue. Claire smiled politely at the waiter, then turned her attention back to the table. The food, beautiful and carefully plated, seemed almost ironic given the emotional weight of the moment. Daniel's eyes lingered on the table, seeing the ordinariness of a meal juxtaposed with the extraordinary emotional reckoning taking place. Then Claire spoke again, softly but with a finality that was undeniable. "Daniel, this is our last dinner together. Not because I want revenge, not because I'm angry, though I am, but because I need to stop questioning myself. I need closure, and it's happening here, quietly at this table, with honesty." She looked at Mark. "And I needed you here too, so none of us would feel alone in the truth." Daniel's face fell. He opened his mouth, searching for words that didn't exist. Emily's hand trembled slightly in her lap, tears running silently down her cheeks. Mark exhaled, a mix of sadness and relief evident in his posture. Claire rose from her chair with deliberate calm, smoothing the navy blue dress she had chosen that evening. Mark followed suit. Together, they turned toward the exit, leaving Daniel and Emily at the table where truth had finally arrived. Outside, the night was cool, the city lights blurring softly in the dark. Claire felt the weight of months of doubt and pain finally begin to lift. Mark exhaled deeply beside her, a shared sense of resolution settling over them both. Neither spoke at first. Words felt unnecessary after the emotional intensity inside. Then Claire broke the silence. "What happens now?" Mark asked quietly. She looked up at the sky, the stars faint behind the city glow, and smiled softly. "Now," she said, "we go home. Not to fix what's broken, but to rebuild ourselves. Stronger, clearer, and with the knowledge that we chose honesty over illusion." Mark nodded. "And leave them to their choices," he said. Claire glanced back once at La Riviere, where Daniel and Emily remained seated, the restaurant lights casting gentle shadows over their faces. It wasn't about punishment. It was about acceptance. What had been broken could not be repaired by anyone else. It had to be faced by the people who had caused it. As they walked in opposite directions, Claire felt lighter than she had in months. The air was fresh, carrying the faint scent of the city at night, and with each step she felt the weight of betrayal loosen, replaced by a quiet empowerment. She didn't know what the future held. She didn't need to. For the first time, she felt fully in control of herself, and that was enough. Inside La Riviere, Daniel and Emily sat in stunned silence. The evening having stripped away illusions and exposed the fragile core of their choices. No words could undo the scene they had witnessed. No apology could rewind the clock. But the truth, quiet and undeniable, had been spoken. And in that moment, Claire realized something profound. Sometimes the most powerful act isn't confrontation, it's presence. Being fully aware, fully calm. And fully yourself in the face of deception can change lives not through revenge, but through clarity and dignity. As the restaurant lights dimmed, the tables slowly clearing, the 4 lives at that corner table had shifted irrevocably. Claire had claimed her dignity. Mark had reclaimed his voice. Daniel and Emily were left to confront their decisions without distraction. No shouting, no scandal, no public humiliation, only truth. And in that truth lay a form of quiet justice that words could not capture. Claire walked home that night, her steps steady, her mind finally calm. She didn't need closure from Daniel, nor forgiveness from Emily. She needed clarity, and she had it. The air was cold, but it felt like freedom. In the dark streets, under city lights. She understood that sometimes endings are not about loss, they're about choosing yourself, reclaiming your worth, and letting go with grace. And as she reached her door, keys in hand, she smiled. The storm had passed. The night had revealed the truth. And in that truth, she found something she hadn't felt in months: peace.